I have a question, and Tessian will probably admonish me for this because it's not thought out fully. It's half-baked, and in fact, I just had this idea right now. But if the time comes where you have to choose a side, if there is a conflict, could we count on you and your forces to be our allies?
This merits a good 15, 20 seconds of consideration. She kind of just sits in silence, staring off in the distance as she thinks about this. She says, I don't know. And I hope you'll forgive my lack of a firm stance on it. Cavis's word means much to me, and his willingness to vouch for your group does speak volumes, but I am slow to trust by nature. It's sort of what's gotten me to this point in the first place. I would like to think that if your group continues to do what it does, if this legendary conatus is successful and it gives you even more clout, that if the time came, yes, at this present moment, it would be far too risky for everyone in this town for me to take that bold of a stance.
And you have your people to consider as well, so I understand.
On principle, yes. In actuality, it would depend on many more factors that are even beyond some of our control.
Tessian does pop in at this point, and he's like, well, at the very least, if you could provide us something of a safe haven from Dryden, if we could come to rely on you, should we need a town in order to rest and stay, and know that you would tip us off if there were any wrongdoings on his part, a safe haven would at least be appreciated.
She nods to that. She says, I think at the very least that can be arranged. One of the nice things about being a possessor of information is that you know the best ways to spread misinformation. So if you ever were in a bind, it would be easy enough to shelter you here for a few days. I don't know how long, but at the very least in an emergency we could do that much.
And Tessian just, that would be a greater help than you may know. We've no idea what lies ahead of us on the Conatus and otherwise, and we often find that the number of places we are safe from Dryden's reach is shrinking.
So I would ask your group of that as well. I know you've at least had some passing interactions, and obviously, Isaac, your connection is undeniable, but what do you know of his dealings? Because even in someone as connected as me, I know he has various business ventures that he's up to, but most of that is above ground. Do you know anything else that he's working on?
Do I? We have some...
There's
we
one glaring
gears.
one.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I'm going to introduce...
Well, two glaring ones, really.
No. Well, we're aware of a slave of his connection to the slave trade, and he is he's constructing some sort of device or devices that we're not aware of.
Oh God, do we?
And we are aware that he is working on a large ship of some kind in Lycidian. To what ends, though, we cannot say.
I'd like to wait and see if she has any response to that first.
She says, I've heard whispers about the slavers. There's a workforce being employed that seems almost sourceless at its nature, but I wish I knew more about that, other than passing glances at it from the outside. The boat is troubling to me. A large boat, you say?
And constructed of metal.
Fully
it would be
submersible.
Indeed, it would change naval tactics entirely.
We put a small wrench in its development, but it's continuing.
She looks troubled by this. She says, it's one thing to have a boat that size that is submersible and can hide, but I worry that there's more to it than that. A lot of what has happened with technology, some of which was lost to the war, was its ability to amplify magic in different ways. And I wonder, with someone like Faust Dryden behind it, if there's more to it than just the boat's ability to travel underwater.
from what we, in our limited experience, Tessian and I, or is it just me? You were like swimming on the outside of it. Actually piloted the thing, and I'm not a master pilot, so I did what we were told it could do. It goes underwater, and it's pretty fast. Beyond that, I was unable to figure out any secret functions.
But it is very possible on a ship that size that he could be working on something else to put in it, a weapon of some sort that he needs to transport. We saw nothing of it that we are aware of, but it's a very real reality. You are correct.
And I would like to get up and kind of move toward her, and I'll like move my jacket so she can see the fancy gun. And I'll say, speaking of weapons, and I'll kind of gesture to her to like draw it. I thought about drawing it myself, and I was like, that's probably not a good idea.
Blah, blah, blah. As you kind of approach her, she also stands up, reaches out to pull. Which one?
The main one, the
That's
damnatio gun.
Yeah. Pulls it from the holster, spins it in her hand. Seems adept with this. Kind of looks it over, studies the runes on the side.
As you can tell, it's a finely made weapon that's enough a concern on its own. But this gun in particular has memory-stealing magical abilities. This is just a prototype. From what I could tell, it takes a lot to get it to work, including genetics. But my point is, he's working on some advanced weaponry, and this is just one example.
She's kind of like, after having kind of spun it around just to get a feel for the weight of it and stuff, she's holding it in both of her hands, kind of set in between, looking down at it, kind of turning it over, studying the rune. She says, "This is certainly beyond any weaponry I've seen. The gun itself is of high quality, but still familiar, but the ability to connect magic of this level to it is concerning." She continues holding onto the gun, but she walks a few steps away from you. She goes over to this bookcase on the far side of the room and pulls one of the books out, and it slides aside, revealing what looks like a vault door made of metal. And she says, "This is my own personal vault. It has a couple of layers of protection that stop people from getting in, but what concerns me is that it's also made of a polymer that can repel magic. It's useful to me in that it stops anyone from scrying on its contents or looking in from the outside or being able to detect what might be inside of it, whether that be valuables or even if I needed to hide in it like a safe room of sorts. But this is, while not widespread by any means, something that's already well known. If Faust Dryden has developed something even beyond this and has weaponized it as well, I think we have reason to be concerned."
Tessian nods. He's like, a ship that was capable of repelling magic and submersing itself would be a formidable weapon against any navy.
That is what concerns me as well. Waychester is located relatively near to the sea. This is just supposition at best, but I wonder if at least that part of his building is to make a weapon that could strike back at the monarchy. Because what good would their magic do if he could approach in a ship that was both undetectable and unassailable?
Tessian nods. Like, I have my own concerns for the well-being of my city as well, but yes, Waychester seems the likely target.
Why would he want to attack this seat that's given him so much power to begin with? It almost seems self-destructive in a way, unless he believes he can usurp the power. He can't be that deluded, can he?
That's what gives me pause as well. I know little of his true nature other than what I've heard, but perhaps the great hero of the war resents being underneath anyone else's thumb, no matter how powerful they might be. And maybe after years of this arrangement, he's grown tired of it. But
So he's making a play for Emperor, huh?
could be.
Sounds like a foolish thing my father would do.
It's just one possibility out of many, but a lot of the pieces fit from what I understand. The benefit of being in this position is that I have worked with some of the technology that existed prior to the war. If Faust Dryden has access to some of the same conceptual stuff, there's no telling what could be developed. We lost a lot in the war, especially when the Empire confiscated most of the weapons. But we do know that some of those ideas could still exist. Many people perished in that war, almost countless, my parents included, but there are people who would understand how those things were made and could potentially duplicate them even now.
I'll walk over to her and kind of reach my hand out for the gun.
She shoots you 6 times. She hands it back to you.
I flip it a couple times and then holster it. It looks really cool. And then
Of course.
I tell her, we are on this Conatus, and it is essential for giving our group the renown it needs to make a difference. But our direction is errant at times. Where do you think we could go for more information, either about my father or getting allies or getting to the source of this, of addressing this corruption?
She says, I hesitate to ask to some degree, but when was the last time you were in Timberbrook?
Since I disappeared from there. So how long would that have been?
Days.
No, not days.
No, it's
a few weeks now, because Grail and I...
It's months at least.
Yeah.
Because you were traveling with Grail for a span of time. But the question is, how long had you been traveling with the Vigilante? I don't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's been a couple of years, maybe?
I don't think so. Because... And I think we were, like, in Timberbrook for part of that. Like, that's where I was, like, kidnapped. And
That sounds familiar.
I was
maybe a
operating on
year.
my own for a little bit. Probably a year,
Probably
yeah.
a year total between the travels with this group, with Grail before the group, and then some of it with the Vigilante.
It's been about a year, and I haven't been itching to go back, to be honest.
She says, well, though it might be a fool's errand of sort, one way you could find out more information is by going back to your hometown.
What do you propose? My father, I can't exactly arrange a meeting with him.
No, but there still could be ways of poking around, I suppose. I don't know if I would lead with the accent.
Oh, you don't think that would work?
I think it's perfectly charming, but I have a feeling that he and anybody else who's familiar with him will probably see through it.
But Frederick Chillin is so charming. No, I won't. I would like to not have to speak to anyone. I would defer to my group to do a lot of the out and about investigating. But I do have knowledge of some back roads, factories, hiding places. I was fairly accomplished as a vigilante in my town, if I do say so.
It may serve both your group's purposes. I have heard tell of at least 2 Dragonborn from Karash's clan in Timberbrook. And Karash, this matches with the vision that you had from Cord, too.
Yep.
It may serve multiple purposes, but it's also going directly into the lion's den. And who knows what he's been up to since you were last there.
Well, Tessian, directly into the lion's den. It's nothing new for us, is it?
Tessian's just like, no, I suppose it's not. That seems to be our way.
You might have given us the push we needed. It occurred to me that if Lena is looking for more information about where her Conatus goes next, she has visions, but a large city like Timberbrook might have some additional information. But I didn't want to go. It might be the best bet, though.
You get a moment of pause from Lorene, and eventually she says, how about this? You mentioned your companions were separated to the south. What if you were to collect them and return before heading to Timberbrook? You know, by the way, from the geography of this region, that it's not exactly on the way, but it's not too far afield to where it's, reasonable. She says, I could reach out and see what I can find out about the current state of the city. Perhaps Faust is not even there right now, which I think would be the most helpful information we could find out. If he's away on travels or other business, I would feel like it would be a much safer approach than if he's currently in the city. I could see what I could find out, and perhaps that would aid you in your ability to return to your home.
I think we would be grateful, and not to come off as asking too much, but we're going to need all the help we can get, clearly. Is there anything that you have that would help us in our journey? Weapons, materials, anything of that nature?
She thinks about this for a bit. She says, well, our weapons are a bit limited by design. As mentioned, we don't want a ton of technology leaking out throughout the city, but I may be able to find something by the time you return.
Well, we would be grateful. And Tessian, Karash, does this sound like a good way forward? We'll return here with our companions in a few days.
Tessian nods.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. The metal that this is made of, is there a way to damage it not magically?
She says, well, it depends on how sturdy it is. It will bend or break if it's thin, and is still assailable by some weapons depending on how thick it is. This vault, and she gestures over her shoulder, is pretty well reinforced. I don't know what it would take to get through it. It's almost a foot thick. The metal of that thickness would be difficult, but I would imagine these were only plates on the outside of the ship, yes?
I don't remember. I know it was made of metal. I don't remember how it was arranged.
You guys would probably remember. It was, because you saw parts that were not covered. It looked like a regular ship
that's
underneath,
right.
but there were parts that had... I don't think you guys ever, you didn't really examine the ship in great detail, but your like fleeting memory of it is, yeah, these were some kind of metal on the outside that wasn't mega thick. And she kind of speaks to that point. She says, well, as light as they've been able to make metal these days, it would still be far too heavy to have a huge quantity of it on something that was meant to float. So while it must be at least somewhat sturdy, I don't think it would be similar to this vault. Something of that thickness would just plummet to the bottom of the ocean. So you may be able to assault it with traditional weapons, but the problem is, if it's underwater, you may not have time to do so before it's already breached the shore.
Yes, cannonballs and whatnot only do so much good at a ship that's underwater already. You can't sink it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I suppose we'll be off.
She says, I'll start working my magic. See what I can lean on without attracting too much attention and being a little bit too conspicuous, but a simple question of whether or not Faust Dryden is in Timberbrook should not set off any alarm bells, and we'll see what we can scrounge up in the way of assistance. I just know this. I feel like having Faust Dryden this close to me is bad for business. Always have. So, to me, it works in both of our favors if, long term, we can find something that's done to remove him from this area.
I'm trying to think if... So I'll say, so our goal will be to see if we can suss out any information, blueprints, weapons themselves, if we're lucky, and I would like to report what we find back to you, unless you think that that's too risky and we should keep some distance for a while.
Do we remember what the parts were that we found in the crates at...
I was about to ask that earlier, yeah.
Some gears, some metal rods.
Okay, so we don't know what in the hell
Do
they
we
are.
have that with
parts.
us was going to be my question.
We
probably wouldn't have...
I think you may have taken them to the house in Sagara Cove, but you certainly haven't brought them with anywhere.
Okay.
I don't remember if you took them to the house or not, but I think you grabbed some of them. I just don't remember what you did with them, but
Yeah.
I think you left them there.
Okay.
But they weren't, unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot in those that were especially descript as far as like what they were attached to. Some kind of, mechanical mechanism, but you don't really know what. Is anything else for Lorene before you head out?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
She says, well, I wish you well in your travels. I suppose we'll see each other again soon. On the off chance you can't, just send word so I'll know not to expect you or to think something's happened. But if not, I'll see what I can do on my side, and we will meet again soon.
It's been a pleasure. Tessian, give her a bow or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very gonna just very distractedly. Can you make the metal very thin?
She says, well, sometimes, yes.
And it still stops magic?
She kind of thinks about it. She says, I think it would have to be at least a certain level to keep it out. If it was very thin, I don't know if it would be up to the task, but it could be reasonably thin, yes. Maybe an inch or two.
Thank you.
She nods. She says, you're welcome. And you guys head outside the
politely
manor.
nod. Yeah.
Guard acknowledges you with another nod on your way out.
Oh shit! No. I'm sorry. Hold on. I typed this out, but I forgot to.
Rewind.
Yeah.
As you're making your way to the doorway, Karash turns.
Yeah. It's. I want to call her Duchess. Oh God.
Countess.
Countess. Yep. Countess. Can you do us one small favor?
She says, I can certainly try.
We are known to Isaac's father. The moving about and him knowing is a problem. Can you misinform people?
She kind of thinks. She says, well, I suppose it's a question of what you have in mind. First thing that occurs to me is just to say that you're in a different area of the region.
That would be good.
Of course, if you do anything that's too noticeable, the story will fall apart pretty quickly, but it could at least buy you some time.
Time is helpful.
Maybe it's time we could all have disguises. What do you think, Tessian?
Tessian's like, well, it's an option, but perhaps not sustainable in every circumstance.
I'm just going to look at Isaac in the face and gesture.
Oh, don't worry. I have something in mind for you, Karash. Particularly satisfying.
He's right to be worried.
I only have one idea and I already don't like it. Okay.
So she sort of arranges with you. Her suggestion, well, just to speed this a bit, her suggestion is to make it a town where you visited recently, but is not where you're currently headed. So there's some kernel of truth to it. You know, they were seen in this area, and if they go and ask, like, yeah, I saw them.
Yeah.
But she,
I figured she would have a better idea how to do that than Karash would, but Karash would at least know that he didn't want to be found. So
yeah. So it's kind of a question of like if there's a particular city you guys would like to pick as far as where she sends this information to. Well, not sends it to, but like, you know, about, you know. Oh, yeah, they were last spotted in.
I would like to do the succubus town.
Is right, Diff?
Returning to make sure that things were going along well without the succubus running the whole town anymore. Plus, it's far.
No, I'm not clever enough for that. Never mind.
Is right, Diff, then?
That's my suggestion.
Tessian thinks it's a little silly. We're going to be going to Timberbrook anyway. But he'll misinformation is not bad. But whatever.
Okay. Now you guys make your way out the door.
I nod again.
Not again.
For the 5th time.
Guard, very patient. Make your way back into the streets of Glencoco. At this point, getting the wagon heading out?
Yep.
I guess Tessian has to say his final goodbyes to Thea.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. She looks concerned as you guys leave Countess de Grey's place. She says, well, this is certainly a lot, isn't it?
Tessian nods. He's like, I wasn't expecting it, to be sure. I suppose an extra ally won't hurt us, but it seems the stakes keep getting higher, and well, the danger along with it.
She said, that's what concerns me a bit, but I mean, I know you're cautious, and you won't bite off more than you can chew in Timberbrook, I would hope.
He shakes his head. He's like, no. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit more concerned for you. You'll try to keep your head down a little bit, won't you?
She nods. She says, well, unless I've been spotted with your group, I don't know if I have too much to worry about, other than how troubled the times are in general. But I'll head straight home, let's put it that way. I won't stop for any sightseeing on the way.
Tessie nods. He's like, well, then I guess this is it. I'll see you when I see you next, my love, and I hope it's as fond a time as this was. Maybe a little less dragons, but you know.
She says, my love, if you didn't want to be associated with dragons, you've chosen to marry into the wrong family.
And he just looks, he's like, yes, I know.
And she gives you a big hug, a forlorn wave, and heads out the north side of town.
Smooth trails, Thea.
Yes, as she's heading off, she says, yes, of course. And she has forgotten your name, so she just says, yes, I reckon I'll see you again soon. Her accent has not improved.
All right.
But she's trying, by God.
Eye contact, nod.
Yeah. Tessie's just rubbing his forehead. He's like, well, let's go then, I suppose. We've got places to be.
So, you guys make your way back south in the direction of the ranch, as this part of the triangle will probably take you about 5 hours, maybe 6. For the sake of a montage on your side, what are you doing along the way, if anything?
We did some of the studying in the morning, so I'm probably just kind of thinking, kind of lost in thought of all the different things. Probably specifically, what could my father actually be after? And is he that stupid to want to claim the throne? And if he is, does he actually think he has a shot at it, which is pretty scary?
Tessian's actually down for brainstorming about this, honestly. He might have found the one thing that he's willing to talk about with you on this kind of stuff.
Hello.
Tessian's got concerns. If he could duplicate it, if he could, even one ship is enough, but if he could get more, the ability to ship troops or weapons, if they can't be scryed upon, I mean, we're talking complete immunity to a lot of the kind of standard ways of combating this sort of thing. There's a lot of concerns,
I would say this.
Okay.
Save this for when you rejoin the group.
Okay.
So be mulling it over on the ride, and then, so in a meta sense, bring it up in front of everybody so we can all the characters
We can have this conversation, and we run it back. We can just say, so we were talking, and we'll inform you and kind of just run it back.
Yeah. So that way everybody else can chime in if they'd like to. So, you guys make your back to the ranch. The morning has been an uneventful one. Grail, you and Lena have kind of alternated, just keeping an eye out on the front as you've been going about the house, or, finishing breakfast, helping with the dishes and whatever, kind of idly keeping the morning going. No chores are required, so that's the one nice thing about it. But as you guys have alternated doing so, I'm not even going to have you guys perception check because nothing happens. Ranch is nice and quiet, which is a welcome switch after yesterday.
Yeah.
Anything in particular you guys like to do?
I don't think so, actually. I think I spent enough time now with my parents, have caught up with them. I'm feeling like we're finally reaching a bit of a stasis that I'm more comfortable with, and hopefully information has gotten out to leave these people alone. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm kind of wondering when the rest of the group's going to come back, because it's been a while. So, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty quiet on my end.
Lena?
This probably isn't worth asking, but I will ask if there is like a map of this region, because I want to try and take a look at some of the like northwest stuff, see if there's anything over there. Try to get mentally prepared for what's in that direction, if there's something we need to watch for or anything like that. But if there isn't even a map, then it's that's the first step.
They probably have a map.
Okay.
Maybe a more rudimentary one. It's probably not like a comprehensive atlas, but
Yeah, no, that's fine. Even just having like a basic idea, I'll probably just be studying the map for the morning.
I'm vamping while I pull up my map.
Yay!
La da dee. Map. Northwest of here, where the ranch is. Lycidian is more west than north, but it's on that path. But as mentioned, that's too far out. A large part of the road leading into Lycidian, that goes north out of Lycidian and connects up with the major part of the railway, the White Line, is the Verdant Plains. Or the Vardant Plains? I can't actually read that at this size. I think it's the Vardant Plains. But that also doesn't really fit with your understanding of how far away this is. Given the nature of how far away it is, you have a couple of theories, because it's not entirely clear which. It could be the Still Valley area, a wide open valley that kind of is equidistant between Waychester and Zonebridge. It could also be the Alceus Peninsula, which is up where Frosthaven is. There's part of that land that also juts out to the northwest, where it's pretty close to where Still Valley is as well. Okay. Those are probably your two best guesses given what's in that area. There's actually not a ton in either. They're both relatively open. I guess the third possibility, yeah, that works too, is the Thalomont. It's a expansive mountain range in basically the center of the continent, and it's actually one that Thea is familiar with. But any of those three are in that direction, all pretty well northwest, all a ways away to where it could fit those.
Sorry, what was the peninsula called? Or the second option?
The second one was the Alceus, Alsius, which is where the city of Frosthaven is.
Cool. I'm just going to make a note of those. And I think maybe... Oh, God. Do I have the magic scroll still? Or did I give that to Tessie?
I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't remember anymore. Well, if I have it, I'll make notes that those are the possibilities based on my vision. If I don't have it, I'll just write it down on a normal sheet of paper and then transfer it later.
The last I remember, Tessian was going over what happened in the first step of the Conatus on it, but I don't know what happened after that.
Yeah, I think Thea was even painting in it.
I think so. She was kind of adding to your details, and
I don't know that we established who had it after I had it.
I don't know you did either.
Yeah, I might have just, because I know we talked about it. Like, I almost got turned to stone, so I should probably not be holding on to all of our important things. So, you probably have it. So I'll just make sure to tell you when you get back.
Okay. All right. So, as half the group returns, making its way south, getting back to Grail's Ranch, an uneventful morning passes for them, although still a little bit on edge given the events of the day before. We'll take a break there. In the next session, when we resume, the party is united as one, and they'll decide their next steps of action.
To separate again.
Yes. This time into fives.
We're just going to travel separately.
Yes.
Same place, travel separately.